Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Mark Cuban blames poor officiating for the Mavericks' 2006 NBA Finals loss against the Miami Heat. In an appearance on the Roommates show, Mavericks minority owner Mark Cuban called attention to the 2006 NBA Finals. That series, according to Cuban, was poorly handled by the referees and made it impossible for the Mavericks to keep up against Dwayne Wade, Shaquille O'Neal, and the Miami Heat. Shaq's got it on the block and he just levels Eric Dampier, pushes him out of the way, and hits 2 free throws, and I'm like, oh my god, I just cursed us. Then Dwayne Wade starts driving to the hoop, every little touch, 2 shots, 2 shots. He literally, in multiple games, shot more free throws than our entire team. And that was it, and it was painful. I never got fined for it, but they did officiate, in terms of picking the finals refs, a lot differently back then. It was a lot of just who had the most seniority. That didn't mean they were the best refs. And it was not a good series for us officiating-wise. With Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Terry, and Jerry Stackhouse leading the way, the Mavericks secured the 4th seed in the West that season and finished with an impressive 60-22 record. Everything came together at the right time for the Mavericks, and they cruised through the first 3 rounds, going 12-5 en route to the finals. Unfortunately for the Mavericks, their last hurdle proved to be insurmountable. Between the explosiveness of Dwayne Wade and the strength of Shaquille O'Neal, the Mavericks finally met their match. According to Cuban, however, it was the referees who ultimately put the series out of reach for the Western Conference champions. After winning the first 2 games of the finals, the series completely flipped and the Heat took full control. In Game 3, Wade scored a game-high 42 points in the win and went 13-18 from the charity stripe. Wade scored 36 in Game 4 to tie the series before dropping a series-high 43 2 nights later. He shot 25 free throws in Game 5 alone, the same number that the Mavericks shot as a team. With their backs against the wall, Dirk and the Mavericks did everything they could to avoid elimination, but Wade could not be stopped. He went 16-21 from the line to finish with 36 points and close the series in 6 games. Later, even Wade acknowledged that he received some superstar calls during the matchup. The Heat became champions that summer, and Wade put on a historically great finals performance to win MVP with averages of 34.7 points, 7.8 assists, and 3.8 rebounds per game. It was the 4th and final title for Shaquille O'Neal, who also enjoyed a generous boost from the officiating. For the Mavericks, it wouldn't be until 4 years later that they'd achieve redemption for their defeat and finally bring home a title of their own. Funnily enough, that series was also against Dwayne Wade and the Heat, but with more balanced officiating, it was the Mavericks who came out on top. Today the NBA doesn't handle such talk about their officials, but they've improved the process a lot since then. Only the refs with the best records are given a spot in the finals, and officiating in general has never been in a better state for the league. The Mavericks have nobody to blame but themselves for last year's brutal defeat against the Celtics. Miami Heat fan favorite reveals harsh reality of playing against Boston Celtics. The rivalry between the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics doesn't date back far, but still comes with plenty of harsh stories. Former Miami Heat center Hassan Whiteside was one victim of harsh treatment when playing against the Celtics. The Heat fan favorite retold the story of being cursed out by an elderly woman on the OG show. "I got my retina scratched. I remember this vividly, like I'm holding my eye," Whiteside shared. "You can't see when you get your retina scratched. All I heard was, 'Stop acting like a expletive and play the game.' I look up, and it's a 70-year-old woman. I'm seeing red. I see a 70-year-old woman. I'm like, man, what the expletive, dot. I was like, man, this can't be a real place. Whiteside played for the Heat between arguably the two best eras in franchise history, the Big Three and Jimmy Butler years. He made a severe impact on the interior, averaging 14.1 rebounds in 2017 while recording 3.7 blocks in his second year in Miami. He finished third in Defensive Player of the Year voting but landed on All-Defensive Second Team due to positional restrictions. It's safe to say once Whiteside announced his retirement, he was happy to no longer play in TD Garden. NBA rumors: 5 biggest threats to prying Jimmy Butler away from Miami Heat in 2025. Once it became apparent that the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler weren't able or refused to agree to a contract extension, it became clear that there is a very good chance that the 2024-25 NBA season could end up being their last together. While plenty can change over the course of a season, it does seem as if Jimmy is preparing to test free agency next summer, even if it is to push the Heat toward the point of paying him the money he believes he deserves. If Jimmy does genuinely weigh the possibility of leaving the Heat in free agency, there could be plenty of viable options for the veteran All-Star forward. Let's explore 5 of the biggest threats that could emerge for Jimmy. Because it's already been reported that the Brooklyn Nets could emerge as a potential landing spot for Jimmy in free agency next summer, we have to include them on this list. The Nets are going to enter next offseason with plenty of cap space and could have a desire to make a big splash after what is likely going to be a down year. To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure pursuing a move for Jimmy would be in the best interest of the Nets, but it could be a way for them to add more intrigue to what will likely be the early stages of a rebuild. You never know what next year can hold, but the Nets will have the potential to be big players next offseason. With as much uncertainty that revolves around the LA Clippers heading into the future, I suppose you can't completely discount them from being in the market for an all-star talent like Jimmy Butler. Depending on how the season goes for the team, there's at least a shot that the Clippers end up exploring the possibility of retooling their core next summer. I'm not sure if pursuing a 35-year-old would be the best course of action, but when have the Clippers operated on groupthink? Just look what they did this past offseason when Paul George signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. The Clippers could get to a point where they're ready to make another big splash after losing PG this summer. Even though Jimmy is nearing the end of his career, he could have just enough left in the tank to give the Clippers what they may need opposite of Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. I'm not sure how the Clippers would get in Jimmy's market, but you can never count out a team with Steve Ballmer as the owner. If Jimmy Butler did want to end his career with some familiarity, I wouldn't count out the Houston Rockets. He is from Houston and played high school basketball in the area. Even though he went to college at Marquette, it would be quite a storybook ending for Jimmy to close the final few years of his NBA career where his basketball career started. Considering that heading into next offseason the Rockets could be ready to make a splash move as well, and it makes even more sense as to why Houston could be in play for Jimmy. The Rockets will have cap space, especially with the big decision they have to make on Fred VanVleet, and could even work a sign-and-trade with the amount of young talent they have on their roster. I'm not sure if Jimmy on the Rockets moves the needle much for the franchise, but it's the type of move that could be at their disposal next summer. Houston is certainly a name to keep an eye on as the early market for Jimmy begins to develop in the coming months. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Jimmy Butler? Leave your opinion in the comments.